Thank you for your interest in IBM Copy Services Manager, hereafter referred to in this video as CSM. In the CSM introduction video, we will first make you familiar with the terminology specific to CSM, and then we will demonstrate how easy it is to set up and configure CSM to manage your copy services environment. There are some CSM specific terms and concepts that you should be familiar with before we start. These terms and concepts will be shown when we demonstrate CSM through the CSM graphical user interface later in this video. It is important to understand that the terms and concepts that we will be introducing apply to all CSM copy configurations. Whether it be a simple 2-volume synchronous mirror or a multiple volume, multiple site configuration, these terms and concepts will apply to every configuration and copy type. First, let us discuss the term copy set. Copy set is a term we had to define when we started copying the same data across multiple volumes, as the term pair no longer applied. So, a copy set is defined as a set of volumes that is meant to contain the same data. In this example, we have 2 3-volume copy sets. CSM labels each volume by site and role. Each volume in a copy set is assigned a role and a site. The common CSM roles are Host Connected, Journal, and Intermediate. These roles are abbreviated in CSM to H, J, and I respectively. Sites are labeled numerically as Site 1, Site 2, and so on. For example, a volume that is the Host Connected volume at Site 1 is labeled H1. A volume that is Journal volume at Site 2 is labeled J2. Intermediate volumes at Site 2 are labeled I2. Now that we have volumes, role, and sites defined and labeled, we need a way to identify the copy services relationship that CSM will establish and maintain between the volumes. For this, we have defined the term role pairs. CSM will identify the copy services relationship and show the status of that relationship and the direction of copy in the GUI using a role pair. In this example, we have an H1-H2 role pair with a continuous copy or PPR relationship and a second H2-J2 role pair that has a point-in-time or flash copy relationship. Note that a volume may be included in 2 role pairs. In this example, H2 is the target of the continuous copy relationship represented by the role pair H1-H2, and H2 is also the source of the point-in-time relationship H2-J2 represented by the H2-J2 role pair. There is a special role pair that represents the Global Mirror Master Session resource that resides in the DS8000 storage system. This is the HJ role pair found in every session that has a Global Mirror. There are no volumes directly associated with the GM Master. CSM needed a way to show the status and report on any failures associated with the Global Mirror Master running on the DS8K. This was the convention decided on to be consistent with the table displays in the CSM GUI for reporting state and status on this hardware component. Later in the video, we will show you this role pair in a running Global Mirror session. Now that we have all of these copy sets comprised of volumes, and the volumes have roles and labels, and the copy services relationships defined by the role pairs between the volumes, we need a container to hold all of this. This container is called a CSM session. One important function of a CSM session is it defines the consistence group for all of the volumes at the target location or locations. Another function a CSM session provides is that it's the target of commands issued by the customer to manage all of the copy services relationships contained within that session. Commands such as start, suspend, recover, flash are issued to the CSM session and not the individual volumes or copy sets. There are many session configurations supported by CSM. Later in the demonstration, we will show you some of them. Please remember that these terms and concepts apply to any session type that CSM supports. Now that you are familiar with the terms we use in CSM, we will continue showing you how quick and easy it is to configure CSM and start copying data. We have already logged on to the CSM GUI. We start on the Overview panel. The Overview panel is designed to be the panel that you will use to monitor the general status of your disaster recovery solution. From this panel, you can monitor the health of any CSM sessions that are running, and also the connection to the storage systems that you have identified to CSM. You can also monitor the connections between CSM and ZOS and the health and connection status between CSM and the CSM standby server if they are defined. At this point, all of the icons on this panel are gray as we are starting from an out-of-the-box configuration. No storage systems have been defined to CSM and no CSM sessions have been created. The initial step we will want to take is to make CSM aware of the storage systems that CSM will be managing copy services relationships for. This is accomplished by navigating to the Storage Systems page. This page shows the status of all storage systems that CSM has been made aware of. Since we haven't added any storage systems yet, let us do that now. Today we will be working with DS8000 volume, so we'll click on that option. To add a DS8000 storage system, we need to enter some information necessary for CSM to connect to the DS8000. We will give it the IP address, user ID, and password for the primary HMC. CSM will make the connection to the HMC and show the connection status. We will finish the wizard by clicking on Finish. We will now add a second DS8000 storage system the same way we added the first. Here you can see a table showing the two storage systems we just added. You can see the connection status is green and connected. We are going to quickly type in a location for both storage systems. This is an optional step, but I would like to show you how this will be useful later when we add copy sets to a CSM session. Now that we have added storage systems, we can start creating our session. This is accomplished by clicking on the Sessions link in the navigation pane. The Sessions panel provides a list of all the sessions we've created along with the information on the sessions such as their current status. At this point we haven't created any sessions yet, so the table is blank. Creating a session is accomplished by clicking on the Create Sessions button. This opens up a wizard that will help us through the process. We do not have to choose a hardware type because all we have added to the CSM configuration are DS8000 storage systems. Now we must choose the type of session that we want to create. Selecting the session type box brings up a drop-down menu with all of the session types CSM supports for the DS8000. You can see that the sessions are organized in point-in-time, synchronous, asynchronous, and 3-site. For today's demonstration, we are going to select Global Mirror Failover Failback Session. Notice that when we select the session, we receive a visual confirmation of the type of session we are creating. In this case, a global mirror is comprised of 3 roles: an H1 role, an H2 role, and a J2 role. We will now give the session a name. Today we will name this session Accounting. Now select a location for Site 1 and Site 2. Remember we added a location to each storage system when we added those storage systems to the CSM configuration. Here we can choose from locations we entered for the storage systems when we added them previously. Let's say that the session is copying data from Tucson to Phoenix. We will choose the locations to match where our data is. This is reflected in the image that is used to represent the session. Later you will see how we use these roles locations when we add copy sets to the session. When we selected OK, CSM created a session in the data store and offers to go to the Launch Add Copy Set wizard. As this is the next step, we will select this option and continue to the Add Copy Sets wizard. Please bear in mind this session only exists in the CSM's data store at this time. The session is not copying any data on any storage systems. To do this, we will first need to specify the data that the session will copy. The step that we will now take is to add copy sets to the session. Remember, a copy set is a set of volumes that have the same data. Once again, we see an image of our session to the right. As you will recall, Global Mirror is made up of H1, H2, and J2 roles. To create a copy set, we will want to select the volumes that will take part in each of these roles. You will notice that right now in the picture, the host 1 role is highlighted and is pointed to by an arrow in the left-hand navigation of the Add Copy Set Wizard panel. This means that we now need to select the volumes that will take part in the H1 role. These are the volumes that application data is currently being written to. There are two ways to add copy sets to a CSM session. One way is to maintain a CSV file of the volume pairings and import them into the session by specifying the file to import. See another CSM video on how to create the import file and how to import data sets into the session using this methodology. For this demonstration, we'll go through the Add Copy Set Wizard. The top drop-down box is automatically populated with the DS8000 that resides in Tucson. This is because when we created the accounting session, we specified that we wanted to copy data from Tucson to Phoenix. Therefore, my H1 volume should be on the storage system located in Tucson. If we had multiple storage systems with a Tucson location, we would be presented with a list of storage systems to choose from in Tucson. Selecting the storage device brings up a list of all the logical subsystems or LSSs that are on that storage system. Selecting an LSS brings up a list of volumes that reside on the LSS. If we select a volume, we can continue through the wizard and match the volume up with other volumes that we want to be part of the copy set. Creating a copy set one at a time would be a tedious process. Fortunately, CSM allows us to match the entire LSS. To do this, we need to specify the LSS that will hold the volumes for the host 1 role. In this case, we select all volumes for that LSS. On the next page, we select the LSS that will take part in the H2 role. This LSS resides in the storage system in Phoenix. By associating the storage systems and session roles to location, CSM helps to prevent you from adding volumes in the reverse order or selecting volumes from an incorrect location or storage system. We will now select an LSS that will hold the J2 or Global Mirror Journal volumes. When we click Next again, CSM will go through the steps of matching the volumes on the LSSs into a list of copy sets. Once CSM is done matching all of the volumes and creating copy sets, we will see that this has succeeded. Next, we are presented with a table showing us the copy sets that we are creating. Selecting a copy set will show us a list of volumes that make up the copy set. We can click on an individual volume to view its details such as volume type and capacity. The checkbox next to the copy set indicates whether we want to add a copy set to the session. If there are a few copy sets we don't want to add, we can uncheck them here. We then confirm the number of copy sets we wish to add to the session. This takes us to a progress bar showing the progress towards adding copy sets to the accounting session. When the copy sets have been added to the session, we go to the results panel where we can confirm the success of the Add Copy Set operation. From here we can finish the Add Copy Set wizard. Exiting the wizard, we can now see that the session we have created features 256 copy sets as shown in the sessions table. At this point, we have created a session and added the copy sets that have the data that will be copied by the session. Nothing has been done on the hardware yet. The session and all of the copy sets have now been defined and are now saved in the CSM data store. The process we just completed provides a simple method for adding copy sets to a session, eliminating the need for writing and maintaining cumbersome and complex error-prone scripts. The session and their copy set configuration are persistent in the data store. As you can see, adding copy sets to a session is a simple process. The steps that we took to create the global mirror session are the same steps that we would take to create any session supported by CSM. Remember, CSM follows the same processes and uses the same terminology for all session types. This means that as a user, you only need to learn one copy services tool. The global mirror session we've just created is still in a defined state, lying dormant in the CSM's data store. We'll now take the steps needed to initiate the global mirror copy on the hardware. First, we select the Session Actions drop-down, which brings up a list of available commands from the drop-down list. We're going to choose the Start H1, H2 action. This indicates that we will be copying data from the primary site Tucson with the H1 volumes to the secondary site Phoenix with the H2 and J2 volumes. We are presented with a prompt explaining the consequences of the action that we are taking. By starting the global mirror session, we will overwrite data that resides on the H2 and J2 volumes. This prompt ensures that we are understanding the risk associated with running this command. You will also notice an image of what the session should look like after the command has completed. This provides us with a preview of what the command will do. When we acknowledge the prompt, CSM took all the necessary steps to set up the global mirror relationship on the hardware. All we had to do is issue a single command, and CSM took care of all of the complexity for us. There. That's how easy it is to get started copying data and preparing for disaster using Copy Services Manager. To recap the steps it takes to start copying data from the source to target sites: first, configure the storage system to CSM, then create a CSM session, and then add the copy sets. Finally, issue the start command to the session. Now we will continue with a demonstration to show you how easy it is to check on the progress of all the volumes initial copy and the discussion of CSM session states. Once CSM sets up all of the hardware, creates the GM master, establishes all the paths between H1 and H2, establishes all the mirroring and flash copy relationships, and the hardware begins initializing data from copying data from H1 to H2, the session will transition to the preparing state. As you can see, the session has gone into the preparing state. This tells us CSM is monitoring the preparation of the target site during the initial synchronization of the data between the source and the target sites. We call this state preparing. As we can see, everything is working fine, but the data is not yet consistent on the secondary site. Remember row pairs? The Session Details panel has the table that contains all of the row pairs for the session. For this global mirror session, we see 3 row pairs. Each row pair is a column to show you the status of the copy services relationship. The H1, H2 row pair has a progress indicator on the progress of the initial copy for all of the volumes participating in the continuous copy relationship. We will go directly to the row pair details panel to show how CSM reports on the progress of the individual copy relationships towards the completion of the initial copy. Here you can see a progress bar for each volume. This way we can identify the volumes that have completed initialization, what volumes are initializing, and what volumes are yet to start initialization. Note that all of the columns in the CSM tables are sortable by clicking on the column header. Going back to the Session Details panel, we can see that the progress of the session is increasing. While we are waiting for the initialization to complete, let's go through some of the actions that can be taken on the session. As we already saw, the commands of start and start GC are here, but now that the session has started, the command set is expanded because we have relationships. We can now suspend or terminate the pairs. If we wanted to add more copy sets, we go to the View Modify portion of the panel, and there you'll see the options to add or remove copy sets, and also change site locations and other things that you might want to do to the session. Remember, we could import a CSV file with the copy set information. Well, here's how you can export all of the copy set information for the session. We have jumped forward in time to catch the completion of the initialization process. Here you can see the session has just completed the initialization process and has gone 100% complete. Now CSM is starting the Global Mirror Master session. Remember that special Global Mirror row pair that represents the Global Mirror session? Here it is showing the number of recoverable volumes once the initialization of the H1 to H2 copy is complete and GlobalMIR has started forming consistency groups. We can see that the global copy portion of the session is currently copying data. Here we can see the number of recoverable copy sets as well as the current progress of the session. Once the session has completed all of the volume initialization and the hardware global master has successfully created its first consistency group, the session will transition to the normal status and prepared state. This means that all of the H2 volumes in Phoenix are recoverable should a disaster occur in Tucson. Here we'll click on the H1J2 row pair column for information about the hardware global MIR session and how successful it is in forming consistency groups. We will now finish up by going back to the overview panel. As you can see, the session overview shows green normal and the storage system subpanel indicates that all storage systems connections are green and connected. This concludes our portion of the demonstration. Please refer to other IBM Copy Services videos using the link shown. A follow-on video on the steps to do a recovery, failover failback, also known as a side switch, is to be found there. Please look for other CSM videos showing more detail on setup and configuration steps and best practices that will help you manage your copy services with IBM Copy Services Manager. Thank you again for showing your interest in IBM Copy Services Manager.